Chat, today it's finally time to review your homework. It's me, English teacher Lulu, and today I'll be reading your scary stories. Alien encounters, paranormal encounters, ghost encounters. Did they really happen? Or were they just an elaborate hoax? Thank you for submitting your spooky homework, chat. We actually have two different forms of submissions today. One from the Google form and one from the Discord server. Which, if you guys enjoyed today's stories and you have your own scary stories, videos, security cam footage, if you think you have caught a ghost, submit it over in the X-Files channel once it goes back up on the Discord server. Link is in the chat. You can no longer submit for today, so I do apologize if you have to write them and hold on to them until next month. The homework link! There is new homework, which is the 2-sentence horror story, which I'll be reading in 2 weeks. So don't miss them, chat. Don't miss them. They can be silly. You don't have to make them super serious. So it's about time. 2 words horror stories. Card declined. Dun dun! Card declined sounds terrifying. Alright, chats! With some scary music, let's jump right into it! Pew, 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 pew. So let's get started! Yippee! Our first story for today is by Super Silver Gunner over in the chat. I hope they're here today. Yippee! And here is their story. It was during a college trip in my 4th year. My class and myself traveled to an old castle in Landstefan. That sounds Swedish. Is this Swedish? It was old but stable. I entered this certain section of the castle. It was dark with small pouches of light. As I turned around to the exit, I turned to the wall next to me, and what I saw terrified me. I believed I saw a face forming from the wall with blacked out eyes and its mouth open, just staring at me. I ran out of the castle and never dared to go back in. And you never went back after that? At all? Bro, that's terrifying. I've been to so many castles, but I have yet to experience... I have yet to experience something scary like that. Okay, don't go to Landstefan. Terrifying. And Super is a believer. Dun dun dun. Okay, chat. Next one is from Anonymous. Kuromiya lurk. Is this Ponte? Ponte, is this you? Ponte, was it always you? Were you the ghost? Okay, here we go. Are you ready, chat? Are you ready? Now, let's pace things down a little bit, shall we? I have a little question that I must ask before we start unraveling this little story of mine. But sometimes little things weigh more than enough to show how brittle our reality is. So, what is, for you, an alien? X-Files theme, Kuromiya edition. I want to believe. Unironically, that's a question that can lead to multiple answers, all of them valid, and for multiple reasons. One factor that influences the analysis is the individual field of knowledge. Someone in the scientific field, for example, might have a precise picture coming to mind whenever someone talks about something alien, and it can often be a pretty terrifying scenario. I don't know if Ponte has talked about this before, or if chat knows this, but alien movies scare the sheep out of me. I had to go and take a stuffed animal to watch Disclosure Day last week because I got so scared. The trailer made it look even scarier. It was not quite as scary, but those terrify me. Fourth kinds, I did not sleep for 2 days after. Alien stories are so scary. Dad, it's not even like, okay, hear me out. Like, haunted houses, fine. There's ghosts there, okay. I know there's ghosts there. I know it's haunted. Usually you can get out of that. Have you ever seen somebody like successfully evade like an alien abduction? It could have happened to any of us and we would never know. Heck no, please don't let this be real. That's so scary. That's so scary. Another factor is simple and essential all at the same time. Language. We'll not go into the details on that point. We might just keep in mind that even if and when we share the same core meaning for a specific word, the shades around it can be meaningfully different based on personal experiences, context, state of mind, habits, etc. From a purely etymological perspective, alien comes from the Latin alienus that, forgive little mistakes, my memory is what it is. It is what it is. means something like of belonging to another, not one's own or strange. Now that we're all sleepy enough, why not slide into the narrow slope between dream and wake, reality and not our reality? Ooh, wait, is Ponte proposing like dimension shifts equals aliens? Even Mars attack? Yeah, Mars attack is still scary. So frightening, so scary. Can I get like a tier 3? Can we get a tier 3 for Storm? That was a good segue. In a day with the rays of the redacted. Is this the sun? Are you talking about the sun? When we're still scorching the earth, even if it was late September, not a breath of wind was trying to alleviate the weight that the heat was imposing to every living creature in sight. I was there, lamenting, and walking on my favorite secondary road to reach the grocery store in the nearby town. The road passed almost in the middle of nowhere, and the amount of green touchable matter that can be perceived is remarkable. It's not so unusual to encounter wildlife, especially around dawn and dusk. That day was one of those days. Sadly enough, when I was approaching a turn, I noticed something. A hedgehog. Or at least traces of a despawned one. Left on the road, probably by Truck-kun. I think VTuber lingo should be studied. I stopped by, sadly watched the scene for some time, hoping that at least it was isekai'd into a nice and more kind world, and then decided to keep going before the heat became too severe. It was in that moment that something happened. I've perceived a movement at the margin of my field of vision. After taking a deep breath and letting that out, I've casually tilted my head a little bit, just enough to better see what was going on without giving the idea that my attention shifted objective. 3 figures were approaching by the side of the road, all of them in black suit, same height and structure. Truly bizarre. Or just an elaborate hoax. Jokes aside, 3 figures in black suits in the middle of nowhere, in the countryside? That wasn't normal at all to me, and what happened next was normal even less. The few instants I've spent thinking how much out of place they were seemed enough for them to reach the roadside. Just for Chronicles duty, they were about 40 to 50 meters from me, about 164 grippers. When I first noticed them, I maintained self-control, but that took me by surprise. Did I just space out in front of possible danger? No way, not me. And still then, how the figures were able to reach the road so quickly. I've continued to stay still, my eyes on the hedgehog's remains. The 3 figures walked to the opposite side of the protege stain and begun talking between themselves, totally ignoring me. I've decided it was the right time to naturally shift my attention to them, so I did. And well, that wasn't already a strange day. I'm not good with faces, okay? Whatever. But those 3 suited men looked identical to me. No way! No freaking way! That is so scary. Could you imagine seeing your face copy-pasted onto somebody else? The situation was starting to look surreal enough, but oh my, if my brain wasn't ready for the next act of that weird live show. I don't know if it's normal for twins or just even uncommon. Uncommon to at that point, I could have been enough to put my mind at ease. Anyway, they were talking pretty fast and quietly, so I took a step forward, moving away from the middle of the road. And at that point, I was able to hear what they were saying. I don't remember the details of the conversation they were having, but that's not even the point. They weren't actually having a conversation. They were doing some kind of weird monologue. With the 3 creatures alternating swiftly the lines of some sort of invisible script. At that point, I was convinced I was simply daydreaming. They were talking about the hedgehog, but they seemed somehow not understanding why it was still. And why it was there, on the road, and not the nearby woods. For me, that was enough. I've cleared my voice and told them that sadly, you can find pretty often despawned little creatures on the road, surprised by some car when trying to reach the woods on the other side, or on this side or the other. I also warned that it would have been better for them to move away from the middle of the road, if they didn't want to end up just like that hedgehog. They stopped talking, looked up at me, looked at each other for a few seconds, then thanked me and shifted again the attention to the hedgehog. Well, okay, I'm done. I surrender. Groceries, here I come. My inner voice was eating me away from that sheep. And who was I to ignore such a pure call for some totally normal and peaceful activity? I left the 3 figures behind without looking back even once. Wait, that's it? You just left like that? What? Twins are normally connected to an eerie degree in terms of feeling of what I have heard. Oh shit, I gotta ask this. I do have twin siblings. I never actually asked if they had any like spooky encounters before that they shared. After the story, for real, you were deceiving yourselves thinking this was the end? Oh, Jabasted! That I was going to let you go with a sword, with a story so short? Think again, lamb chops. Hee hee. I'm sorry, CP Overlord. I remembered to hydrate. God damn it. I'll drink some sparkling water this time. Staticky. After doing my IRL dailies, I took the same path on my way back home without thinking. At that point, I've had already almost forgotten that bizarre meeting. But more I was getting close to that location, more I was becoming curious. Tons of questions leaned out in my head, all without answers. And without noticing, I've almost missed the weird meeting spot. How? I mean, it's not like you can miss a Dali version of the aftermath of a hedgehog on the road. But is this hedgehog or hedgehog? Either way, this is funny as heck. But I was in the right spot. I was sure of that, since I was clearly looking at the same side road from where the three figures came, and was in that moment that I've vaguely seen something on the asphalt. Where there a shadow of a hedgehog he once was, now just a vague, almost unrecognizable stain remained. For context, we don't have decent scavengers here, and if a little animal happens to despawn on the road, it's pretty easy to still find it in the same place even 3 days later. Also, as I said, we're talking about a road in the middle of nowhere. Humans never pass there without proper cleaning vehicles. I'm pretty sure it was just a case. I'm lying so much once again. But just when I was ready to leave the area, keep walking home, I've noticed a little hedgehog staring at me from the heights of a little slope on the roadside. I smiled and nodded at him, with my inner voice just saying, nope, I've had enough, and kept walking. Firmly decided to leave that bizarre daydream behind. As always, sorry for the bad English, it's not my language, and I still struggle with it. And I do believe that Ponte is a believer. Yeah. Holy shit, they revived the hedgehog! I gotta move to the middle of nowhere. If I ever get hit by a car, this is who I want to find me. 1000%. And I believe we've gotten a submission from ZZ. First, I hope you guys are excited. I guess it's time for a lore drop from my experiences growing up in the Appalachian Mountains. Let me know if I mispronounce this, by the way, Chet. I've been trying so hard. This word is hard. I was raised in a very heavily forested area and heard stuff about an abandoned mine and a cave with Indian drawings in it in the area, but I was never dumb enough to go looking for those. This isn't the first or last experience I had, but it's definitely the worst. Had a neighbor 2 houses down. There were only 5 houses in the immediate area to give an idea of the level of isolation. And while I was too young or disinterested to really know the full situation, he went to surgery. As a result, got an infection in his leg, and rather than go to a doctor, he would just complain about it until one day he decided to start itching at the spot. I'll leave that there, cause long story short, he kept scratching until he unfortunately, well, not a pretty sight. Long after that, my grandparents and I were on our way home from town 40 minutes away. I was raised by them, not my parents. Zizi, you too! And out of the corner of my eye, I started seeing this shadowy humanoid just from rooftops and dashing across the street. It was one of those things where when you try to look directly at it or make it the center of your attention, it immediately vanishes. Like I said, this isn't my first experience seeing something weird, and I was raised under a religious household, so I told my grandmother I saw something. I can't remember what exactly I said. She can speak in tongues, or for the more skeptical, what she says is tongues, and after prayer in tongues stopped seeing it. I got home without seeing it again. I don't know why, but it felt like what I saw was my neighbor that took his own life. I got no explanation for that since it was just a feeling, but I more or less got a confirmation that it was actually him later. Oh, that's so scary! What the heck? What? Corey, welcome in! Corey, welcome to Spooky Story Reading. There is a continuation. A week passes, we're on our way home again. This time, after dark. We would go down the road to turn around to get up into our house, and as we turned around and went past this now vacant house, I saw something else in his yard. It was another shadow figure. Who just took my hair? Chat! What about the shadow egg figure? Consider me. But this one was taller than his trailer house. Despite the fact that it was night, I could see the figure as clear as if it was day. And the best I can say is it looked like a shadow version of the Hulk that was extremely tall and muscular with red glowing eyes. It wasn't like the first where it went away when I looked at it. I made eye contact and just froze up. Felt a very primal fear and knew this thing wanted to do things far worse than just to end my life. Just like with the first one I saw years ago, I could not move and was kind of hypnotized under its gaze until I was able to snap myself out of it. I just told my grandmother, "We have to go, there's something not right here." And she did another prayer and we went the last bit of the way home and didn't see it again for a bit. Later that night, I woke in the middle of the night, hungry, so I went to get a snack, and while I was at my kitchen sink, looked up, and right outside the window, I saw it again. Those eyes staring back at me, and the only thing between us was 2 panes of glass. Another detail I want to point out is outside that window is like 3 to 4 meter drop, so either it wasn't on the ground or it was very tall, which of course lines up with how I saw it earlier that night. Of course I freaked out and ran to get my grandmother, and had a breakdown while she did another prayer, but it didn't go away this time. Don't know how, but I could feel it was still around, just keeping a distance. And I don't know, feel where it was, and it was just waiting. So I told my grandmother it was still around. She prayed again, and it went away. I didn't see it again, and still haven't, I think, to this day. That is terrifying. What kind of creature was that? Holy sheep, what was that? It says birthday subathon. Sorry for being so late. No, Pixel! Thank you. Please don't worry. Nobody is late. We're still celebrating. We believe. This one, yes. This one is so terrifying 100%. Same with Ponte's story. I'm buying Ponte's story 100% too. Friendly alien seems like such a nice concept. After all my encounters, especially that I do not go outside at night, and I have a horrible case of nyctophobia outside of stuff like nighttime in the city, so yeah, fun times. Wait! I didn't know that Zizi was scared of the nighttime. Understandable though, after this I would be too. Holy shit. Terrifying. Pixel! We're reading scary stories of ghost and alien and cryptid encounters that chat has submitted. Chat, head up. Scrub, let's go, holy shit. Probably a creature fled a 3-letter organization facility. Oh shit. SCP? Maybe I know what that was. Nebula, what is the scary thing? Daisy, yay, short hair Lulu today. Yippee. Dun dun dun. Okay. We're gonna play some scary video games right after, I promise. I promise, chat. There we go. Oh shit, that was so scary. Whoa! Another one, chat. Let's go. I have one. This is what I've called it. A successful ghost hunt. Walking into the cemetery could 3 guys be seen with voice recorders and cameras in hands. It starts off with nothing, just 3 friends joking and trying to half-heartedly get a response because they had seen it a lot on social media. After a half an hour or so, then things changed, starting off with one of them seeing a white lady out of the corner of their eye. That in and of itself would not be odd as such. The problem was where that lady was sneaking a look from, which was behind the treetops, without any aid of a ladder. Dang, she's tall. Oh, she climbed up there? They ran pretty fast down the lane towards another gathering of trees, where they were further spooked due to a sudden loud noise, which they laughed at quickly, and then they realized it was just flapping and screeching of spooked birds. As they gathered themselves, they returned to try and get more actual physical evidence gathered. After a while, they suddenly heard footsteps getting closer. They were ready to inform the person that they were just trying to get some spooky evidence. However, as they looked towards where the sound was coming from, with their flashlights pointing down the lane, they did not see anyone where they clearly heard the steps coming from. They quickly began to run away from where the sound was coming from, getting more spooked as they heard the steps getting faster and closer as they left the area of the cemetery. They noticed the steps stopping as they got near where the entrance to the cemetery was. They heard the steps stop. Instead, they heard the deep, otherworldly growl. As they returned to their base, they thought they had gotten just the steps actually registered, as they had missed taking a picture of that lady in the tree. They, however, found out as they went through the recordings, they noticed something off at one point. The moment where they had been spooked by the birds flapping their wings and screeching, they found there was nothing outside of their own voices. But did everyone hear it? Holy shit. What? It's nighttime and I forgot to check Twitch release against my bed. No, Pixel, no worries. If you're up all night from that coffee, please stay with us. We got more spooks ahead. Ooh, we got a scary video. Old clip quite famous in Malaysia and Singapore back then. Oh, but not...
Hope was just a squirrel thief that had stolen some white laundry Kuromiya dial-up.
A squirrel in a white dress sounds amazing. What the heck? Here, next one! I had another experience recently. Nothing how it could have been me mishearing something like a cat, because my brain has been misprocessing sounds sometimes to make them sound like other things. Do you guys ever get that? Do you guys ever hear the noise of people indistinctly talking when you're sleepy? For example, I thought I heard a tornado siren start up, but my cat made this weird noise yesterday, so it's very possible it could have been her, but she wasn't sitting at the top of the basement stairs. I was sitting in the basement working on some of my stuff with my back to the closet of my dad's stuff is in. I absolutely hate that back corner of the basement because it feels like something is watching you from there the entire time. Anyway, when I was working, I hear this strange noise, like someone trying to find their voice, and then once they did, they started humming a kind of tuneless melody, almost as if it wasn't exactly used to trying to sing or something. It freaked me out, though I will additionally note our basement's windows aren't sealed very well, so you can sometimes hear things outside if they're loud enough or if they're close enough to the side of the house, but it was like 12 a.m.-ish. I've definitely heard my cat go wow, 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 wow before. Like that Long Johnson like meme. But humming I've never heard before from a cat. That's so scary, what the heck? Holy sheep. Heck no, 12 a.m.-ish? Oh, we got more from Pante! Let's go! Short story. Real. Real.
Believe what they've perceived, but yep, could have been anything Kuromiya lurk.
You have to believe. Citation needed. This is a fresh experience from a couple of days ago. This was handed in on May 29th this year. I've had countless little bizarre X-Files related episodes in my life, but I honestly don't even remember most of them anymore. Sometimes a few tend to surface, jolted by scents or sights, sometimes a voice or a sound. But mostly they just merge with the rest of the reality. 'Cause at the end, they are definitely part of it. So I was blessing the redacted one that was recently relentlessly eating at me those redacted hideous rays of sufferance. Some joke again. While I was on the balcony just trying to do spreading the laundry. I know that's already scary enough. Oh no, not choice! I can leave it as it is, but out of nowhere I began to hear a noise. A very low frequency buzzing sound. Bzzz. At first I thought it might have been just another bumblebee. Maybe a specimen of Felish and not paid much attention to it. They needed attention. Since the sound wasn't drifting away, I decided to turn to the source and see what was going on. In that precise moment, the sound ceased, and 2.5 meters from me, the broom fell. Without external input, without a trace of wind, was comfy, laying on the wall, and just decided to fall. I let out a sigh, ignored the events, and began to spread the laundry again. No more weird sounds or events happening in that day. Or for the bad word. What? It's the aliens from the Hedgehog story and they're back. That's so scary. That's so scary. What the heck? Surely that wasn't a bee. Surely that wasn't a bee. Believe what they've perceived. Also, no, welcome in. It's good to see you. Welcome, welcome. Okay, okay, ciao. I'm gonna wait out the ads before we continue so nobody misses anything. This should be it. Are we ad free? Yippee! Yay! I do apologize for the ads. Twitch makes me play them. There's no way to opt out of it. It's either we play them and I get paid, or we play them and Twitch gets paid. That's it.
For context, I can hear a little more than the standard human, both on lower and higher frequencies, so who knows?
It could have been another alien story. Oh, that's scary as heck. Storm, welcome back. Welcome back. Yippee. You survived the ads. Yay. Another one from Ponte. Let's go. I'm on pace with sheep tags. Only missed one of the stream cut, so I'm pretty confident I haven't missed a single X-Files reading. No, you haven't. Here's the repost. Roll of the emotions. Be patient with the mossy creature. Context is always important. The same events in a different context can hold different meaning, and if you miss out on the context, you'll never be able to begin to analyze the event under the proper shades or lights. Oh, sheep. Wait, is this a rerun? Let's go. I'm excited. Forest picture. Is this the real forest picture from the previous forest story? The one with the tunnel and the clock? Haunting. Seems the time has come for another ancient tale to be told. Now, before starting to unfold the threads, one thing. If there's one thing that you do as first, when you approach something new, make it not be categorized. Let's begin, shall we? Oh, I just did that. Ponte, I'm sorry. I'm uneducated. In the end, after a long... Oh, there we go. It was a magnificent season again, when nature always does its best to show off in myriads of colors, with leaves falling and dancing on the boundaries between life and despawn. With a couple of friends, as always, Eugene A and B, we decided the location for our next trip in the wilderness, done some planning, gathered some resources of food, and a few days after, we were on the road. The metro wasn't the most clear for the chosen area, and having been there already a couple of times, it was fully aware that we were walking on a narrow path. Being out during a thunderstorm can be a dangerous experience, if not the last. In the end, after a lot of staring at each other, I smiled, tilted my head a little, and whispered, "After all, at least it'll be an experience. Good or bad is just a matter of perspective, isn't it? Let's go." Lost in the woods. Well, they were already in the car, in their minds, so that was more than enough. After a couple of hours, we were already at the end of the road, backpacks on the shoulders, and ready to reach the top. We started to walk the usual path, under a deep gray sky, and we haven't to wait much to find ourselves surrounded by a thick fog. Eugene B wasn't exactly happy about that, all muttering that it was a bad idea, deciding to go adventuring with that weather. I was giggling to myself and decided to spice things up a little bit. I already know the area well enough and suddenly chose to trick Eugene B by randomly descending into the woods without notice. Ponte, you little sheep! He started to panic a little and yelling not so narratable epithets, and in the end, he only forced to follow me and Eugene A, already vanishing in the mist. Of course, all was according to Keikakumin's plan, and after a few minutes, we were merrily on another path. Well, maybe not all of us were merry, but let's not indulge into details too much. Oh, he was stressed. After all, the raging creature we had just created little knowledge had about what lied in the end of the path I chose to follow. After a while, the shadow of a big building began to rise in the fog, followed shortly by anxious questions. Where are we? Where have you led us? You redacted? What is this place? The fact is that casually at the beginning of one of the paths to the mountain peak, a big house was built. Why there? And what was the purpose? And maybe at the top of our priority list, why was that place abandoned more than 40 years before? Don't apologize, it's okay. I was just making it known. No worries. No worries, Maniac. You're so kind. I wish everyone was this kind about the ads. And here we are, facing what was a lot of time before the entrance door of that building, now just a fragmented hole in a brick wall. Someone tried to log out the place and again to try and keep people away. And they've had done that not without a reason. A lot of stories gravitate around that area, and of course, I'm not able to tell how many are true, or how much fantasy had corrupted the true ones, with the tales passing through lots of people and some generations. Only one thing I can tell for sure. Something was off with that place. Not just the building, but the area around it as well. I've already told this thing once or twice, but there are places where energy naturally overflows. And those places are vibrating of life, with strong creatures both in the veggies and animal families. They seem bright and ready to bring happiness to whoever happens to pass through them. Once again, but there are places that seemed of that energy deprived, being for that precious resource sinking underground or wiped off by something that I can't tell. And there I return. Only one thing I can tell for sure. That place, the area around that building, is one of those places. The latter type. Ground floor plus 3 floors up, at least 1 floor underground, an entrance before us, and a strong will to explore the location, suddenly falling off. Yujin A, that was supporting me for the whole hike in teasing Yujin B, was simply shaking his head and taking a distance. Honestly, I wasn't perplexed. Everything in my body and mind was just yelling to my consciousness to go away, just go away. What a bad illness to have, sometimes a curious mind. Have I already told that something was off? Not a sound of animal activity, not a single breath of wind. The vegetation struggling to grow in the building's proximity. Not a good sign. Not a good sign at all. It was almost like life itself was trying to run away from there. Oh? Have I reached the broken brick wall? Guess it's too late now to retreat. I've taken a look inside with the little light that a foggy day has offered us. Debris and destruction. Tons of items, furniture, and broken glass everywhere on the floor. A wide hallway and ahead a corridor with multiple doors on both sides. Some of them opened, some smashed into pieces, and half on the floor. I've glanced at him, nodded, and then took another few steps in, just enough to reach the middle of the hallway. It was at that point that something happened. The heavy silence was abruptly broken by a loud sound. I wasn't able to recognize the source, but the location. The sound was generated at the end of the corridor, right in front of us. Funny enough, since I was looking in that direction and saw nothing moving. Since in those cases there's always the chance to encounter some despicable human being, just to be sure, I took the initiative. After checking our way out, I took a deep breath and threw a full-strength stomp into the floor and yelled, "Whoever you are, if you have problems with us, don't hide. We'll wait for you out of here." This is actually so sweet. Ponte was so careful in this. Dizzy, thank you for paying your taxes. Thank you. By the time I've ended yelling, sounds of falling items, breaking wood, and heavy steps on broken glass began to approach us from the end of the corridor. And that time, I saw pretty clearly things flying around. I've sensed Yujin B running away while screaming. Since my brain was still half working, I decided to simply and calmly walk towards the broken brick wall without taking a second look at the noise's source. I said sauce again, god damn it. Rapidly approaching, I've reached the exit, and when taking my first step out, with the other leg still inside, I was hit by something. I chose not to check and kept walking towards the middle of the lifeless plain in front of the building. Once I reached the spot near Yujin A and B, I faced the building once again, ominous but silent, like nothing had happened. I let out a deep breath, then looked at my leg. Just a scratch with a little laugh, and let's reach the summit. We set off again for our planned hike. Shortly after we left, the fog disappeared. There's no need to tell that we decided to take another path for the return trip, right? What was the house? What was in there before? Do you guys think it was a ghost? A squatter? Somebody hiding in there? Look, thank you for paying your CP taxes also! Welcome back to X-Files reading. I think we have reached our last few stories for today, chat. So let's jump into them. From Kimono! I'll tell the story in 3 parts. But first, a little backstory. A little over 20 years ago, I worked in a convenience store. I had heard that violent crimes had occurred there in the past, but do not know if the story is true. I had, however, noticed that there was a small hole in the glass near the bottom of the last window.
No humans, no movements aside of items flying around form very room at the same time.
100% ghost. That's so scary! Giant spooter! No! I read it in an Australian accent as well as I could. Holy sheep. I heard that a violent crime had occurred in the past, but I do not know if the story is true. I had, however, noticed that there was a small hole in the glass near the bottom of the last window one night, and it appeared to have been made from the inside. Later on, when the company decided to remodel the store, I was informed that when the shelving was removed near the windows, that a smaller caliber shell was found underneath. I even held it in my hands, so I know at least that much was true. The first incident occurred one night after I had just finished stocking the beer cooler. As I was walking down the aisle towards the front when I suddenly decided to whistle a random tune. When I heard somebody else start whistling, a beat later, I immediately stopped and the second whistling stopped a second later. Thinking someone had entered the store while I was in the cooler, I quickly searched the entire place but found no one. As a double check, I looked in the cooler to see if I had turned on the buzzer that would alert me if anyone came in. It was on. Thinking that maybe it was malfunctioning, I opened the door to check. The buzzer sounded. With the buzzer working and nobody else in the store, I took note of, yeah, that happens, and decided to ignore it and finished my shift. It was after this that I would occasionally catch glimpses of what looked like a person walking around the store. And the name Charlie popped in my mind. The second incident occurred when I had to open one morning. By myself in the store at 4 a.m. on a Sunday, I was counting down the drawer from the previous night. And while I usually turned the radio on whenever I first came in when I opened, this morning I had not. The silence was suddenly broken by whistling that came out of nowhere. Shaken, I thought to myself, okay, Charlie, turn off the radio, and continued working. The third incident occurred on a Friday night when I was closing. I had noticed on the schedule that I had Saturday off for once. This hadn't happened in a while because my schedule was usually consistent with Monday and Tuesdays off, so I was a little excited. After closing, same weekend as me, I took care of a little thing I had to do before leaving. The final thing being turning on the alarm. After doing so, I was walking to the door. A voice called out to me, "You working tomorrow?" Without slowing down or even looking around, I replied back with a "nope," and quickly exited the store. Other than some glimpses and occasional sounds from the cooler, that sounded like someone was stalking it. Now and then, nothing else significant happened in this particular location. But you were the one closing the store! Oh, that's spooky. That's so spooky. Holy sheep. Chat! What do you guys think of this one? That
Once
was
again,
terrifying.
We believe Kuromiya thumbs.
We believe! That was terrifying. I think it's time for one spooky story of my own before we close this up for today. When I was a young sheep in about 5th or 6th grade, I was a regular at the infirmary of my school because I would get injured all the time. One day I hit my head and it was pretty bad. It's empty in here, but what if, something happened? And they called my parents and parents had to come pick me up. My dad had to drive a really long way to the school. And the infirmary was inside the school building, same main building. So I would lay on the bed and look out the window and be like, man, this sucks. But at least I don't have to do math today. They wouldn't let me read or do anything else, so I didn't quite know what to do. So I would stare out the window and look at the clouds, look at the treetops, and everything was normal. It got dark really early because this was the middle of winter. So at 2 p.m., 3 p.m., My parents were still not there. It was pitch black outside. And I was like dozing off and going, man, I don't want to go to the hospital either. It's gonna suck. And I heard a rattling at the window. When I looked over, I looked at a person. It wasn't like spooky or scary or, you know, like translucent or a shadow or glowing eyes or anything. I thought this was just another student who woke me up and was like, hey, my bad. And I saw them in the window. We made full eye contact. I waved and then they ran off. I went back to sleep and my parents eventually came and picked me up. On the way to the hospital, I was like, wait, hold on a minute. This is on the second floor. Where were you running? Where the heck were you running? I don't know if this was head injury. I went a little bit silly. Or if this really happened. But chat, you decide. Dun dun dun. Chat, if you guys enjoyed today's scary stories, please. Holy shit. The exorcism emojis. If you guys enjoyed today's scary stories, please make sure to leave me your next ones over on the Discord server. We'll be doing another one of these in a couple of months' time. Until then, here's the spooky homework. If you're watching this on YouTube later, we're looking for 2-sentence horrors, good or bad or funny. And you will find a link to the new homework in the description below. You have 2 weeks, chat. Enjoy. Ah, Ponte, you're so sweet. I really appreciate it. Thank you. Yippee. Anyway, chat, I will see you guys for another spooky special on the weekends. Dun 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 dun. No, I must go. I'm also on the second floor.